24 chefs, 24 culinary showdowns for 24 hours straight. Which chef will outcook, outpace, outlast the competition?
No chef
escapes the clock.
Season premiere, 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing, Sunday, April 27th at 8. See it first on Food Network. Stream next day on Max.
You are listening to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences.
I just can't see my life any other way without running in it. Many years ago, when I was still working, I watched a video. I don't know if you know Joy Johnston. And I watched her video and her story. And one of the things she said, I think, sums up what running is for me. Each run is guaranteed to be different. The very best part of being alive is never knowing what the next step will bring. And to me, I feel like that's what running has brought to my life. It opens up new adventures and opportunities to me that I wouldn't have done if I hadn't taken that first step. Hi, I'm Gwen Jacobson, and I live in Rochester, Minnesota, and I'm an avid runner, a Girls on the Run coach, and a volunteer coach for a high school girls cross-country team.
Yes, this episode features Gwen Jacobson, who is a coach, an active running community member, and she is an avid runner. Gwen definitely goes after adventurous and ambitious running goals. But before we hear more from Gwen, I want to welcome you to Women's Running Stories. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Gwen's story is amazing. I also want to thank Karen Mitchell of the Runner's Gazette for introducing me to Gwen and her running story. Thank you so much, Karen. All right, now on to Gwen's story. Gwen, who is currently 66, has run many distances, but without question, she has the greatest affinity for the marathon, and she is a very, very prolific marathon runner. Gwen has completed over 120 marathons, as well as one 50K, since she started running in 2010, which means that yes, Gwen got started in her 50s. Gwen has raced the marathon throughout the United States, quite literally in every single state, and she has raced 26.2 miles internationally. It is her preferred distance.
I think I enjoy the distance because it's a challenge. But I do enjoy the run. And when I go to a marathon, even if it's overseas, I get to connect with the runners that I've met over the years. I've never gone to a marathon and gone there and been totally alone. I always connect with runners from across the United States, and we get to reconnect and have fun talking about our goals and what's next, and just crossing that finish line and knowing that I got it done. Even if I didn't make my A goal or my B goal, my C goal is always finish it, which other than one marathon I did do. So.
And yes, Gwen is also very determined to finish what she starts. She's very goal-oriented, and as you'll discover, she likes to go after big challenges, like running a marathon in every state, and running each of those marathons in under 4 hours. In addition to that, she wants to win her age category in a marathon in all 50 states. So where she hasn't already done that, she's going after that goal too, and she's got 7 states left in that challenge. Gwen is also chasing a sub-3-hour marathon on a downhill course, and she's gotten really close. Her current downhill marathon PR is 3:04, and she set that at the end of 2023. Weather conditions last year ended Gwen's chances of going after that goal. The marathon was downgraded to a half marathon in 2024, but she will be going after that goal at the end of this year just after she runs the New York City Marathon 1 week before. Yes, Gwen is really ambitious in her marathon running. In this episode, Gwen talks about how she has progressed as a runner since the time when she started back in 2010. She talks about some of these goals and challenges that she goes after. And she gets into how she continues to run fast and far now in her mid-60s. Specifically, she's gone through her fair share of trial and error when it comes to staying injury-free, and she's learned a lot about bone health. And she's landed on healthy habits that work for her. You're going to hear some details about that. So let's get to it. Let's hear Gwen Jacobson's running story, beginning with when she first started to run. Here to tell her story is Gwen Jacobson.
I didn't run much in high school, and I got married young and had children, and I really never had time to think about hobbies like running until my children graduated in 2008. And in 2010, in December, everybody's thinking about New Year's resolutions. Well, I worked at a company that had an in-house gym, and several coworkers and I had decided we were going to start to run and train for a 5K because one of my coworkers' husbands was suffering from cancer, and there was a 5K race in May of 2010 that we were all going to train for and run to support her. So that's how I got started, was really to help out a coworker and do something with my coworkers to benefit their husband. Training for the first 5K kept me running because I knew I had to train to run that 5K. And when I did that 5K, I finished it in just a little over 30 minutes without walking. And I thought, I really should find a race every month. And initially, I was looking for races that benefited something, whether charity or whatever it was, but it had a purpose to the race. So I would pick a race every month and run it. And early on, most of those were 5Ks. And then I saw a 5-mile race. That happened to be in November. And the day of the race, it was snowing. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm still going to show up. I signed up for this race. I did that 5-mile. And then I picked a 10K. And then I had a coworker that said, well, you should sign up for Grandma's half marathon. It's a lottery. I thought, oh, okay, it's a lottery. I won't get picked. Well, sure enough, I got picked and selected to do it. So I ran Grandma's half marathon. I'm trying to think what year that was. 2010. Nope, that had to be 2011 because I did that in June and I finished it and I thought, well, shoot, I'm halfway to a full marathon. Maybe I should look at a marathon. And I live in Rochester. Twin Cities Marathon is in Minneapolis, and it's supposed to be the most beautiful urban marathon in America. But I looked and it was full. I thought, oh, I guess I can't do that. But then I learned my local running club had a running training program. And if you did that, you would get an entry into the Twin Cities Marathon. So that's how my first marathon opportunity arose. I felt fortunate having my local running club to train me for the marathon. I did all the training runs. I practiced my nutrition. I had a couple of good friends that I went to the marathon weekend with. And this was a little bit of a funny story. I had it in my head that I had to have oatmeal before the race. And I couldn't find oatmeal at the hotel, but a concierge opened up the kitchen early, and I think I paid $7 for a bowl of oatmeal the morning of the race. But my friends went with me to the start. They taught me how to have the throwaway clothes and everything. And my goal was to do a 4-hour marathon. And I started the race with another friend, and I was with the 4-hour pacer. But by mile 3, I thought, oh, I don't think I can do this. I'm going to drop back. I feel like this is going to be too hard. But I kept going, and I had family that was supporting me along the course. I would never do this today, but it was probably about mile 7. I saw my family over to the left-hand side. It was my sister and my sister-in-law and their kids. And they even had shirts on with my bib number and everything, cheering me on. I actually darted across to other runners to go give them high fives. Today, I know I would not do that because you could run into another runner, but I was just so excited. And I just kept running. It was a beautiful day. Minneapolis is a beautiful city to run through. And then I got to we came over the Franklin Avenue Bridge, and I looked to the south, and the fall colors were just absolutely stunning. But it got a little harder after that, because then I hit mile 20, and then you have to go up Cretin Avenue, which is a steep hill. I looked to the left, and there was my nephew, who was a Division III runner at St. Thomas. He goes, "How you doing?" I said, "I don't think I can make it up this hill." And he ran me up the hill and supported me. When I got up to Summit Avenue, I told him, I said, "You know what? I'm gonna get this done. I'll see you at the finish line." I ended up finishing the race in 4:06:49 or something like that. And I thought, I did it. I was a little over 4 hours, but then somebody told me, "Do you realize you just missed qualifying for the Boston Marathon by like a minute?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And then they told me. And then I thought, you know what? I think I want to run the Boston Marathon. So really that first marathon gave me that motivation. It was a huge carrot. And my approach to it was to train really, really hard. But then I discovered that the race that I was trying to qualify at didn't go the way I'd planned.
Gwen's second marathon definitely did not go as planned. She decided to run the Grandma's Marathon in Duluth, Minnesota in 2012. Since she was already familiar with part of the course, having run that half marathon, and she knew it was a good course to run a fast time. She was going after that Boston qualifying time. But at about the halfway point, she started to experience a little bit of pain in her hip. She was, however, very determined to finish, and she did that, but it landed her in the med tent and eventually on crutches for 7 full weeks, healing a stress fracture to her left femur. Gwen would come to learn a lot from this and subsequent injuries about her bone health and how to train to sustain her increasingly demanding running goals.
One of the things that I learned early on, my first injury in June of 2012 during Grandma's, that left femur stress fracture, really was the result of overtraining. I was running too much. I wasn't cross-training. Fortunately, I got connected with a women running specialist up at TRIA in Minneapolis. And she explained to me that as we get older, we can't run as much and we need to cross-train. Although I didn't perhaps listen to her as quickly as I should have. But I did do the recovery for that injury. But in the following March, just less than a year later, I was racing an 8K, and it was on cobblestone, and I must have just landed wrong. But then I broke my left tibia, and I thought, oh, okay. And then she at that point wasn't too concerned, but that was when I ended up learning to run in the pool, which is great cross training for people when they get injured. And then I stayed injury-free until the fall of 2016. And this particular injury was not a stress fracture. I had a high-grade TFL tear in my right hip. I was running a downhill race in Pocatello, and I was still not sure what caused that. But I was able to recover from that. And then in November of 2020, I went another 4 years without an injury, but I was running the White River Marathon in Arkansas. And if you can picture your right femur bone, your big bone in your right leg, I had a stress fracture right in the middle of that bone. And that got my doctor's attention, and they did a bone density test, and they found out that I had osteoporosis. So once we knew that probably was the cause of my earlier injuries, because I had a weakened bone density but didn't know it. But I was treated with a drug called Timlos, which is a drug there you give yourself a shot in your stomach. For 2 years I did that. And then I had 2 years of Fosamax. But after the 2 years of Timlos, we actually had reversed osteoporosis back to osteopenia. I had regrown bone density, and we were seeing good improvement. So then I went on Fosamax for 2 years. But at that point, I started strength training and I started cross training, and I do swimming once a week. I bike in the summertime. But I think the biggest change was that I introduced strength training in 2020 after I recovered from that injury, and I have not stopped it since. And it truly does, I think, improve your bone health, but it also helps you run faster. And in 2021, I started setting new PRs. I went to London and I ran I can't remember, 320 something. And a week later, I went to Boston and ran a 321, only like 1 minute slower on the Boston course. And it was like all of a sudden my times were getting faster and I felt stronger during the races. I strength train a minimum of 3 and hopefully 4 days a week, which is, they say 2 to 3 is good, so I figure 3 to 4 is better. But I do have a routine that I go to a local gym and I do upper and lower body weights, a good distribution of all the different muscles, but I don't do as much. I'm not doing it to build muscle mass. I do more I'll do like 4 sets of 10 at a weight that's challenging but not over challenging. So I'm really just trying to maintain the muscle tone and do the kind of the fast, quick weightlifting. And then I have a 15-minute core workout that I started thanks to COVID, during COVID. But I do that at the end of my strength training to maintain my core, because core strength is so important to a runner. It helps you stay upright and helps you stay focused. So I think the combination of that core strength training that I do and that strength training has really helped me with reducing and eliminating injury and making me faster. And when I first started running, I was going 45 to 50 miles a week, which still isn't a lot for people who train for marathons, but I drop it down. My target is to get 30 miles a week, and I don't try to go over that. I think one of the things as we get into our 50s, 60s, and 70s, if we want to continue to be a healthy runner, we do need to run a reasonable mileage. You can still be a successful runner running less mileage as long as you supplement it with strength training, some core work. I swim once a week, about an hour. I try to put in a couple miles swim every week, and I'm really looking forward to summer and spring here in Minnesota, get my bike back out on the road. I'm not a big fan of riding the bike or using the treadmill indoors, so I'll do it when I have to in the winter. When the weather's bad, I'll use a treadmill, but I just love being outdoors and doing my workouts outside when I can.
Yeah, so Gwen has landed on a program that keeps her strong and fast. Throughout this time of learning and honing her training strategies, Gwen has been going after those ambitious running goals, starting way back in 2014.
I just got to talking with people and they said, well, you should run a marathon in all 50 states. And I was still working full time. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just kind of start looking at things and slowly start at it. And I fortunately had 2 local running friends that kind of got hooked on the same goal at the same time. So I actually had local training buddies that we would, okay, let's do Georgia, and we'd pick the race and then we'd go, and I had people to share expenses with. So it was kind of a shared goal with local running friends as well. And it gives me an opportunity to see the country, I get to see a city in a way nobody else can by running the streets. And I think I really got serious about it in 2016. And like I said, I had a couple friends that were doing the same thing. So we would pick a state and a race that we could do. And at that time, I was still working. So I'd try to pick a race that was either obviously a Saturday or Sunday race and limit my days off. So I didn't get to see a lot of the city other than running the race, because I'd come in the night before the race, run the race, maybe go home the next day. But we always tried to hit some highlights while we were there. But I really got serious in 2016. And then you had to start planning it out, because so many of the races are either in the spring or the fall. And there were certain races that I wanted to do. And also, once I decided I wanted to do them sub-4, I would use the Find My Marathon website, and you can look at the marathons in a state and find the course that had the best rating. So obviously I wanted to run a course that was going to give me my best shot at being successful, of being under 4 hours. But a lot of them were the same time of the year. So it's kind of, okay, this is going to be a 4 to 5 year plan to get this done, because you can only do so many marathons in a year. I think the most I did in 1 year was 14. But as I got closer to the end, I thought, well, I haven't done Iowa yet. And it was important to me. My children probably would have preferred that I picked Hawaii as my final state. But I decided that I hadn't done Iowa, and Des Moines is about 3 hours south of Rochester, Minnesota. So I picked Des Moines as my final state in October of 2019 and worked backwards from there. And fortunately, that worked for me. But it got a little nerve-wracking, because I think I had New Jersey left in the spring of 2019. And there was high winds, and a couple of my friends got delayed getting into that race. But luckily, we all made it there. And I remember running with the gentleman. I said, I have got to get this race done under 4 hours today, because there isn't another New Jersey race between now and October. And he says, well, I'll get you through the half at least. And he stayed with me. And luckily, I did get that race done under 4 hours. And I was able to stay on track and make my finish in Des Moines. Des Moines was special to me because I was born and raised in northern Iowa. So I thought, how appropriate to finish in the state where I was raised. And secondly, it was close enough to Rochester, Minnesota, that a lot of my friends and family could be there. In fact, it was the first race that all of my children came to see me run at. And I had high school friends that came, and there was over 30 members of my running group that came. They either did the relay or they did the half. We made a weekend of it, and by that point I had met and made many friends through the 50 States Club and 50 Sub-4 Club. And so I had over 50 friends and family taking part in that race and cheering me on. And when I crossed the finish line, it makes me tear up right now. It was just so special. My kids were there with big balloons that said 50 and flowers, and we celebrated with a big party afterwards. It was really, really fun. I think I've always been goal-oriented, so I always went into a race with a time in mind or a goal in mind. But as I started to have success in races, I did get a little competitive. I mean, in Minnesota, they have Minnesota Runner of the Year on a state level. Locally, we have a Grand Prix race where if you run certain races, then you are the winner of that Grand Prix for your age group. And so I had all of these opportunities to try to achieve these goals. And so pretty much every race that I went into, I wanted to run it the best I could and the fastest I could. I always had an A goal, a B goal, and a C goal.
Yes, Gwen is goal-oriented, and she is competitive. She's got that ongoing marathon C goal, which is finishing, but countering that, she's got some big A goals, which is what led her to running those fast times she mentioned at the 2021 London Marathon, followed shortly thereafter by the 2021 Boston Marathon.
Abbott World Marathon Majors started the age group championships for runners over 40. And London was the first age group championship. And I qualified. That's how I got into London, because London is very difficult to get into. And I knew there was going to be and I was 60 to 64, and that age group is very competitive. I was just hoping that I would end up on the podium in the top 3. My goal there was just make the podium. And when I finished the race, I honestly didn't think I had made the podium. But I went to the awards ceremony anyway, and my friend Leslie Cohen from California had won first place, and she was announced, and then they announced Elizabeth Waywell from Canada, and then they announced my name, and I didn't even think I had made it because I couldn't find the results. So that was just, I was ecstatic to place third, honestly. So that was a new PR for me. I ran 3:20:41 in London, and I left London on Monday morning. We flew to Boston, and I stayed in Boston. I have a cousin that lives in Boston. I stay with her every year. And so I just rested and recovered, and ran Boston the following Monday with a 3:23:08, less than a week later. And I finished, and then a reporter came, but I ended up in the med tent. I was a little bit dehydrated. And a reporter came in and said, "You won your age group. We want to talk to you when you feel up to it." So I came out of the med tent and chatted with the reporter. I couldn't believe it. I never expected I would win my age group in Boston. Fortunately for me, I'd had a lot of experience because I ran my first Boston in 2014, the first year after the bombing, and I have run it every year since. But that was the year, because of COVID and the rescheduling, that was the one and only time Boston was ever in the fall. So I was excited about the weather. It was a beautiful fall day. And I always do the same thing in Boston. I know you're not supposed to start out fast, but I take advantage of those first 16 miles and enjoy the hills. And then I just try to buckle down and maintain my pace as best as I can, knowing I'm going to lose a little ground through the Newton Hills. And then I usually get a fresh breath of air when I get to mile 20. Once you get up Heartbreak, the race for me kind of starts over. And I kind of look at I don't look at my watch until I hear it beep on the mile marker, and I just look at my pace and go, okay, I'm hanging in there. I'm just going to keep going and do the best I can. So I had no idea at the time that I finished that was good enough for first place.
Gwen was placing among the best in her age category at major events in 2021 and winning. And she has continued to get faster since, which means she continues to be in the mix for podium spots at top races, with an eye, of course, on the top spot. And she's got some very strong competition.
I would say that I was getting faster in 23. I'm most proud of the Chicago Marathon in 2023 was again an age group championship. So I would say my non-downhill PR is a 3:16:04, which I ran in Chicago in 2023. And that earned me second place in the age group championships. And then that fall, I ran New York that fall, and I was 3:19:15. So I think my sweet spot right now is my goal time is 3:20. I've had a little trouble getting under 3:20 this year, but I did have a stress fracture a year ago in January, which slowed me down a little bit. And I didn't do as many marathons last year. So I'm hoping that I am back on track. I've done 4 marathons already in 2025, and I'm dancing right around that 320. So I'm hoping my A goal is still get under 320, but my B goal is if I can keep them under 330, I'll be happy. I ended up only doing 6 marathons last year because of my injury. I fortunately was able to recover from my stress injury in my heel in time to run Boston, but I wasn't 100% at Boston. So I had signed up for a couple others that I took off my schedule. I typically go back to Grandma's every year in June, and I did that. Then I had Sydney, which was very important, and New York City, and then I went back to Big Bear. I did add one in December to get back on my feet, but I've got 12 on the calendar for this year, and 6 of them are the world majors. But my big goal that I finished last year was I ran my 3rd age group championship in the Sydney Marathon in Sydney, Australia in September, and it was a 3:20:05, but that was good enough for first in my age group. So that kind of checked the box to win my age group at the age group championship. So I put that aside, and I had entered the Tokyo lottery. And I thought, well, if I get in the Tokyo lottery for 2025, I'm going to run all 6 world majors in the same year. I know there's many people that have done it, but I've never done it. So I thought, I want to run all 6 of the world majors, excluding Sydney, because I'm not going to go back there again this year. But the 6 original, and I do want to place in my age group, either 1, 2, or 3.
Gwen is most definitely motivated by big competitive goals and challenges, and she's showing what's possible as we age. And in addition, Gwen also keeps in mind the core drive behind all of this.
Running is just so much of who I am. I enjoy it. I love getting out there. Even on the days that I don't have a good run, I'm still out in the fresh air, and I'm challenging my body and doing what I can to stay healthy. And it gives me an opportunity to go places I wouldn't go if I wasn't going there to run.
Wow, what a journey. And it continues. Congratulations to Gwen on all these accomplishments, and my very best to you in all that is still to come. A big thank you to Gwen Jacobson for coming on Women's Running Stories and sharing her running journey. Yeah, it's just incredible. And I am sure you will want to join me in following Gwen as she continues to go after these big, fast marathon goals. Look to the show notes, and I will link to how you can find her on social media. And that brings us to the end of this episode. I am Cherie Louise Turner. I am the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. Thank you once again for being here. I always appreciate you coming and listening to these stories. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, joyful, long-lasting strides forward. Women's Running. Women's Running Stories.